Hey, hi, hello, friend. So today our guest is Dr. Joli Hamilton. Joli is a non-monogamy relationship coach and has her doctorate in depth psychology. She also has a certificate in sexuality education and is best known for her work in archetypal jealousy. We brought her back as our first official guest for season 7 because of the brilliance of our conversation last time, as well as the fact that we are talking about sex. We immediately dove into the conversation and we talked about perimenopause, learning pleasure through growth, redefining sex around connection, and so much more. This was such a great conversation, and we hope you enjoy listening to it as much as we had having it. Welcome to Season 7 of the Queer Consciousness Podcast. I'm Kit Sargent, and my pronouns are they, them.
And I'm Jess Grace Garcia, and my pronouns are they, them. We're just humans wanting to share the lived experience of other humans.
This season, we're talking about all things sex. We want to have deep, heart-led conversations as we unpack what sex means to us and why it's so important to talk about it.
This is a season of unlearning, relearning, and sharing about a topic that is still considered taboo.
Because at the end of the day, we are all spiritual, sexual beings having a human experience, walking each other home. Let's go. Dr. Joli Hamilton, welcome back to Queer Consciousness.
Lucky me. Thank you for having me back. Thanks for having me back to hang with you guys.
Of course we are going to have you back. You're awesome.
Aw,
Well, that,
so sweet.
I mean, we also needed a part 2 to the conversation anyway, so this was the perfect segue for that.
It was a juicy combo. It really was. It was yummy. It was very yummy.
And we really wanted it to still be a threesome. So we
It's
just...
true.
That's it. I mean, if you're gonna talk about intimacy, let's just start with a threesome. Let's just start there. It's just always best.
All right, so this is going to be a different conversation, mainly because it's going to be a different topic. We're shifting things a little bit, and you are our first official guest for season 7, so welcome.
Yay.
Thank you for being here. And because of the fact that we have kind of shifted how we're going to be doing things, it's going to be the same premise, but the topic of conversation is going to change. And we couldn't think of anybody better to introduce the season with than you, because you were fabulous. You are fabulous. And you have a wealth of knowledge when it comes to sex and intimacy. And so we wanted to be able to have a foundation to build upon with all of the conversations that we have going forward. And so we thought of nobody better than Dr. Joli to bring back to say, hey, we're talking about sex. You want to talk about sex with us?
Yes. My answer will
Let's
always
talk
be
about sex, baby.
Thank you.
Let's talk about you and me. We
Let's
gotta
talk
go
about
there.
all
I
the good
mean,
things.
if we don't have at least a little singing in every episode, did it really
It's true.
happen?
No,
I
didn't.
think the fact that I am going to be a part of this season 7, where I haven't been before, I've just been kind of like a fun guest appearance every now and then, means there's definitely going to be more singing.
Yes.
Fantastic. I love this.
I'm
for
already
us.
looking forward to that.
Fantastic. So the first question that we are going to ask from now on is, what does sex mean to you?
Oh, so much. But I'm so glad you're asking that today instead of like a month ago. Because I've been really grappling with what sex means to me. I'm at a new spot in my own journey, in my own life. And I've spent a lot of time feeling my way through this. So I could give you like a professional sex educator answer. But I think more appropriately is it means what I make of it in the moment. Like the meaning of sex can't be, at least at this point in my life, I can no longer distill it down to be a thing that has meaning separate from the acts that I participate in and the people, including myself, who I am participating with, right? It's impossible for me now to take it out of context. But if you'd asked me 7 years ago, I would have had a very different answer. There's something has changed, and I believe it's changed within me, but I'm out there. I feel like it's just changing too. Like I think we're having a shift. I really do. And I'm not a big one for proclaiming shifts. I'm really not, but what does sex mean to me? It means connection. It means depth. It means I'm willing to be vulnerable with this person
Mm-hmm.
And I don't just mean because it's gushy and emotional. I mean, because I'm kinky as fuck. And so for me to explore a sexual experience, even a verbal one with someone, is to expose myself.
Oh.
That's, I can't separate that from my growth as a person, from my experience of myself as like a spiritual and psychological being. So it kind of means everything.
Ugh, I relate to that so hardcore. I also am just remembering how beautiful our connection was the last time that we talked. It was such we were really in tune with each other, which makes a lot of sense. As someone who is demi and a little bit like, I don't say pan super big, but definitely pan. That demi side of me has a really hard time when my friends who can separate emotion from sex have conversations about it, because I think I I I often think, are you missing out on something or am I missing out on something? Like, is there some benefit to being able to be disconnected from something in order to be able to just like maybe learn or have education? For me, the kinky side of me comes out in my voyeurism. And so that's where the voyeurism is more of an educational desire half the time. So it's like I'm here, I'm learning, I'm wanting to just watch and take this in and see, not feel obligated to be involved, and being okay with the fact that I know nothing about you guys. That's the only time that I feel like I'm able to be a little disconnected, emotionally. But if I'm having sex with someone, if I'm physically in a connection with someone, or even spiritually, in a sexual connection with someone, yeah, there has to be like an emotional and um deep connection, in order for me to be vulnerable. And it can be a short-term deep connection. It doesn't have to be something that was built over a long time, but I have to feel safe enough to be vulnerable.
Yeah. I think for most of my life, really up until just about within the last year, I have considered myself allosexual, very much able to separate sex and emotion, very much able to make a sexual connection with someone, not need anything else. And I noticed a shift starting a little before a year ago. I noticed an increasing sense of dissatisfaction with the connections I was making, and a sense of there just being something missing. And I really haven't, I haven't claimed a new label. I don't, Demi's not on my profile. However, whenever I hear someone describe, like you just did, Jess, I'm like, yeah, it's where I'm landing these days. There is just something different. So I can participate in a physical sense without that. But I'm noticing that it's just not worth it the way it was. And the act, if anything, I've had better, there's better actions happening, but without that willingness for someone else to actually enter into a state of vulnerable availability, it's just
Yeah.
it's just taken on a sort of boring tone. And I actually find it kind of annoying, because there's a whole, it's like I've lost the sport of it a little bit. Like there was a sports level participation that I had before. And now I'm like, yeah, I can still do that. I mean, I can also still run a 5K, but like, do I care? And lately I kind of felt the same about my running. I'm like, yeah, I just don't care. I can, but I don't care. And maybe that's just part of every individual's growth path. Like over time, I wonder if it will actually shift back over time, and I might enter another phase where I'm like, yeah, I don't need the emotional vulnerability. I don't know. I can't tell from here, but it's intense right now.
I also wonder if we're just in a bit of like burnout. Like if the perspective, there's two thoughts that I have, and this is one of them. One of them is that we're emotionally burnt out. We don't have the flexibility that we used to. And some people are going the direction we are. And I think some of that is maturity. Some of that has to do with where, how we've chosen to kind of be connected to ourselves. And then some go the path of disconnection, which I also can understand,
Right.
you know, and like dopamine, like, hey, maybe if I can just get off, it will make this life just a little better. Right. So I can understand that. The other thing that I was thinking about is age. Like I've started hitting perimenopausal moments. And some of that has manifested in some really fun stuff like mast cell activation syndrome and dealing with things that I didn't know had any connection to perimenopause until it all started pointing that direction. And we're like, oh, yeah, you're only 38 and you're still gonna start dealing with this, you know? And that has shifted the way in which I engage in sex as well. Like there's the one thing that was so glaring for me at the beginning of this year. You know, we're at the end of 2025 as we record this. You probably won't hear this until 2026. But in like January, February of 2025, I started to notice that there were moments in like, I guess my cycle where I was feeling deeply disconnected. Like, and it freaked me out, weirded me out. I was like, what is this? I don't know how to describe this other than, is this what depression feels like? Am I suddenly developing depression when I never had it before? Like, I don't know what this emotional disconnection is because I am so connected. I am super connected to myself and super connected to my people. And when suddenly I can't feel myself or I don't know what the feeling is, but I can feel it in my body, but I can't feel it. And I can't name it. I'm going, what's wrong with me? And it was like signs of, you know, the coming of perimenopause or
you're hearing the rumbling of the wildebeests across the plains. It's happening. Yes, it's happening. I'm 49
Literally.
and I feel it. I am in like I'm in it. I am like deep in it right now. Not like still having a cycle. So
yeah, definitely
still
same.
feeling the hormonal up and downs, but I have zero doubt that age and hormonal phases are interacting with this. I also, in the course of my life, I have tended to date women just a bit older than myself, like around like 5 to 10 years older. I remember many of them like a decade ago where I was just like, I was raring to go. I was out of the gate. I was doing everything. And I remember them showing up to parties and showing up to just beautiful scenes that were set up and then being like, I'm here. I might participate. I'm not feeling I don't have any pressure to. I might play, I might not. They had this like relief. There was this like sort of relief. Like they were not feeling pressure at all. And I feel like I've arrived there.
Yeah.
Because I just don't feel, and this is a gift. I no longer feel the pressure to perform my sexuality. I no longer feel the pressure to perform my sexual acts, which means some people are disappointed, right? Because the people who I've been performing for a long time are like, they're experiencing a whole new Joli. Some of them like it. Not everybody. And maybe that's also good, part of the evolution of our relating.
Yeah, I heard a comedian recently talk about being in perimenopause versus having perimenopause, or like oh, you got the perimenopause, oh, you got it. Like instead they were like, no, you just say you're in it. Like we're just in it. And because
like
we
an
never,
ocean. You're just in it.
we were never, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but like my mom never talked about this. I never had any, women elders talk about this to me, really. Maybe I noticed it, like you said, like you were dating older women and you noticed, like I noticed it for some of my older friends, who were AFAB or, or women, like just like I noticed it, but I'm like, we weren't talking about it. And I want that conversation to happen more often. So I've been more open about my experience, with it. And I'm glad to hear about your experience. And I love hearing you describe it as a gift, because I do think by not saying that it's something that we have or something that we're experiencing, and saying like we're in it, it kind of feels like, yeah, there are gifts to this. Like, this doesn't have to be all bad.
Yeah.
Like,
and it's not just a list of symptoms, right?
yes.
Because I could list out the symptoms that I'm experiencing. Sure, they're relevant. Some of them are even directly relevant to having physical acts of sex. But they don't actually describe the immense change. So I have, I have sex with people who are willing to be in that deeper level of conversation with me. And I think this is also where the whole like sports level of sex has kind of fallen off, because I'm like, okay, but like when I say I want lube, this isn't a request.
This is a necessity.
This is this is a demand. And if you don't meet it, we will stop immediately, and it will be loud, and you like, no. Like, my level of fucks to give is directly related to how much lube you brought. I can't possibly entertain, for instance, like a willingness to have somebody just pound away at me. I still have sex with penis owners, and I'm not willing to have you pound away at me thoughtlessly. That's not going to happen. We're going to be in deeper conversations. And the symptoms are one way to talk about that. When I do hear people talking about perimenopause and menopause, often we're talking about relief from symptoms. But then there's also this beautiful like dropping into, wow, I am no longer going to settle for anything that is less than what I want. And what I want changes. Right now, like I've noticed even just over the last month, it has shifted again. I'm like, oh, there's a shift. There's a shift in what I want, in what my body wants to do, how my body wants to give. It's very, very cyclical, yes, but bigger than that. Bigger than just, oh, in my monthly cycles, it's way bigger. And I love the thought that this is me discovering like an entire new version of myself. Like it really is second puberty. Like, and it kind of feels like it at times.
Yeah. As a genderqueer person, I think like the idea of newly discovering like parts of myself is really beautiful, right? Because there are like, I don't look back at the more femme presenting version of myself and think that wasn't fully me, because it was in that moment, and like there might have been some parts of me that I was keeping for myself for a little bit, but now in sharing those parts with the world and discovering them with the world at the same time. And I love that. I love that I just want to do that openly, sometimes loudly, sometimes like normal volume, like, no, I'm just here. I discovered a new thing. Something recently that I discovered when we were talking about like some of those life shifts. My mom passed away a few months ago. And something interesting that was a result of that experience was the way in which my partner showed up to support me, right? Me being the extroverted Enneagram 2 who wants to be there for everyone else and kind of sucks at letting others be there for me, except for all the work I've done over the last several years, and especially with my closest, people. And this year was a big lesson in that. And one of the ways that it like showed up in our sexual encounters was that my my wife Jana and I like are a little more switch. We've like, and I would say switch spiritually as well as like physically, but sometimes it showed up more in like a spiritual connection. And if anyone has questions about that, please feel free to DM us. I would love to talk more about that. I just don't want to go off on a tangent. Unless that's something you guys want to hear about.
There's like another whole episode waiting to be had.
Yeah, totally. So, when one of the things that happened is, we were going about doing things that we normally do to get going and nothing was working. And I was like, okay, let's want to try this. What if we try this? What about this? None of these things are working. What's going on? And I just felt like I wanted to be held. I didn't want to be in charge. And big time, Jess went into sub, like all the way into like a bottom sub role. And I say that I always out here, I just found this out from a friend recently that a really kinky friend that lives like in a different state, right? That they use language around kink a little bit more black and white in their community versus like in my community out here, we're a little bit more flexible. We're like, yeah, I mean, like you're subby or you're kind of being a bottom. And we can say both those things and have them mean similar things instead of have it mean, oh no, but if you're a bottom, you're this. If you're a sub, you're this.
Yeah,
right?
like there's not a laundry list of specific things that have to be attached to each.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was interesting. But so when I say that, take that with a grain of salt. That's my language, the community that I've been raised in. And so I fell into this kind of bottom position that was exactly what I needed in that moment. I needed to be held. I needed to be told what to do. I needed to be guided. I didn't want to be in charge at all.
Yeah.
And as someone who leans more dom energy, even if it is a really soft, caring, like dom energy, I'm most of the time the one that's guiding and directing. And so that was our reality when it came to sex for like probably a month and a half, 2 months, as I was healing and getting out of a certain place of pain.
Yeah.
And I was really thankful for it because it really touched me in a deeper way of or a different, I wouldn't say deeper, like in a way that I hadn't experienced necessarily previously in terms of care. And it felt more fully global, like this, like it wasn't just all the ways in which I felt cared for outside of sex, right? It was like all of it, all encompassing. I felt fully cared for and supported.
I love that description. The willingness to be cared for as a whole creature in our sexual spaces, right? Rather than to cordon off as if only part of us is the sexual being. Which that in itself to me is speaking to a level of disingenuousness, right? Like that we've been asked to uphold, like, yeah, who are you sexually, as if it's separate from the rest of you, from the grieving you, right? It's not. I love the idea of also just being able to experience a wider breadth of the sexual experience, right? Like whether it's brought on through your partner shifting something, through your needs, whatever it is, like every time that broadens, I'm always grateful, even when the experience isn't awesome. Like I like experiencing that like full dynamic, and it keeps getting bigger. Thank God. Very, very grateful.
Yeah. For those of us that have been partnered more long term with a partner, rediscovering or discovering new things with your partner is so cool. How it just like it adds to the texture and tone of your relationship and your understanding of yourself.
Oh, hell yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've been with my anchor partner now romantically for 16 years, but I've also known them for my whole life, literally since I was born. And rediscovery is kind of the name of the game. It's the whole purpose, like being witnessed by someone who's allowing themselves to continually unveil themselves to me, and also who's willing to not do that thing where we ask someone to stay who we knew them to be, like somebody who's willing to let us update. Oof. And I think this is also a way that I've found my sexual needs changing is there's I need more flexibility than I was willing to perform a lack of flexibility in my 30s, that in my 40s, no, just not willing to. Just not willing. And I think that's also been a level of self-esteem work, like work on like, oh, I, performing for someone else actually isn't about me. So like really getting in touch with, wait, why am I doing this? What is pleasure for me? Which is what led me to really immerse myself in the sexuality world, is what is pleasure for me? And why does it seem like the things that bring me pleasure are they're not all sweetness and light. They're not all pretty. They're pretty dark and shadowy. What's up with that? And someone who can stand by me over a long period of time and let it go to these darker places, these more challenging places, and without judgment, has been an immense gift in my life. I'm so grateful. I'm so happy. Short-term sexual partnership is amazing. I've learned so many things. I always feel enriched by it. Even when it's not awesome, it's always enriching. But the things that I have learned about myself and my long-term partners they just blow my mind. Like that level of presence to the mystery I can't really imagine another way to get there. Yeah.
So true. It was interesting when Kit asked you the question, what is sex? I thought we were going to ask the question, what is queer sex? And it's making me think, is there a difference? And and how would we think about that if we were to think of the difference? I don't know.
To jump in on why I decided to ask this question specifically, and Jess, I haven't told you this yet.
Okay, see, so I wasn't forgetting something.
Yeah, no,
you weren't. No. So the reason why I ordered, like, when I was thinking about this particular season as to why I wanted to talk about sex, the reason why I said sex specifically and not queer sex is because of the fact that every single person has a different definition for what sex means to them. And because of the fact that we are inherently queer, how we perceive sex is going to be through a queer lens, regardless of the fact that we have to caveat it by saying, what does queer sex mean to you versus what does sex mean to you? Because as queer people, we inherently see the world through an incredibly queer lens. So even if we might have a quote unquote textbook definition of what sex means to us, because of our lived experiences as queer people and the sex that we have on a regular basis is going to be queer sex, regardless of whether or not it is quote unquote straight sex or whether it's quote unquote queer sex. It's still queer sex. And so that's why I didn't caveat it with the descriptor of queer in front of it, because sex is whatever the definition of the person giving the definition is. It's not wrong. It's just your definition of what sex means to you.
I'm grateful for that. I appreciate the question. Because I'm partnered with someone who has been gender fluid over the last 10 years, but who inhabits a body that reads as man, was assigned male at birth, and just reads as man, like it just does. So much of my experience of sex with them is the outside world would perceive it as straight sex, right? And I don't just mean presentation walking down the street. I mean, like, in particular, because I'm 5 feet tall and they're 6 feet tall and their shoulders are this way. Like, there's just so much. But then I've had sex with them in, sexually public spaces. And there are so many layers placed on us that they're inappropriate, because this is a very queer human that I'm having sex with. And I am as well. And I've been out as long as I've known what being out was. So since I was a teenager. And they came out at 45. There's so much pain wrapped up in the reality that we are perceived so straight in the world.
Mm.
And then when you take it to the sexual realm in particular, it's like that volume gets turned up. But I've had some beautiful queer sex in my life, all of it, really, except the stuff where I was performing. So I keep coming back to this word because I have performed straight sex. Absolutely. I've done that for people. I've done it because I thought I should. I've done it because it felt easier.
Mm.
I've done it because it could fuel my own self-validation in times of weakness, and it always leaves me feeling so empty. That's really. I was thinking about this when you first posited this topic, Kit. I was thinking, like, what's the difference between the straight sex and the queer sex that I've had? And the thing that I kept coming back to is performance. So with my long-term nesting partner, like, it's been queer from the get-go. And I think that was the thing that I had that I couldn't even name because we couldn't talk about that yet. Like,
Right.
yeah. So I guess if I were to add a nuance to my original definition, I would say it's when like, sex itself happens for me when I feel vulnerable, available, free to express and to be fully myself and not have to perform queerness either. Not have to perform as if I were, right? So when I'm with this person who presents in a certain way and they're with me, do we have to perform in a certain way to, like, make it clear that we're not having straight sex? And so now I'm back into this internal discussion of, who am I talking about? Between us, we're fine. So how come where's the problem here? Oh, the problem is that even just between us, I can feel the they who are them observing us and and planting that, like, straightness that feels like a straight jacket on me. And I know it feels like a straight jacket on them because it does not describe their sexual being at all. I mean, yeah, it brings up a lot of stuff for me. I think also because I was there for their coming out. I was there for their, like, awakening to, oh, I was never the thing. Like, it happened so late in their life, but they were in love with me. And so we could have just kept pretending.
Right.
Like, they could have decided to just stay inside that sexual box and pretend. And I watch when we go to public sexual spaces, everybody wants him in that box, right? There, he is him. And it's just so, and they're very flexible with their pronoun labels, but, like, there's just so much outside pressure.
Mm-hmm.
And it also doesn't help at all that then we add the kinkiness layer onto it. And over the course of our relationship, I have tended to be the dominant one. They've tended to be the submissive one. But we're both switches. And over the last few years, we've switched to play with that and to really be in the play space of that. And it's been amazing. But again, like, large mask presenting human playing dominant games is perceived a certain way. And it's, yeah. And then it's hard to get to be perceived in your queerness. And that seems to really hurt them a lot. I feel it. I feel it just sort of resonating in those rooms, in those spaces.
Yeah. No, I haven't performed sex in a public setting. So, but for some reason, I feel like I get it. Like, everything that you're explaining makes such perfect sense to me. I can't imagine adding another element to our sex. I know that it's when the three of us are having sex, it's different. You know, some of it is different because of, the factor of my wife's disability, depending on where her energy lies. and I have to start saying my wife, Erica, or my spouse, she said, I've been a wife for a while. You can just call me spouse now, and Jana can be wife. So that's been really sweet, but also hard because she has been my wife that I've been so proud to call my wife for so long, and that pride has not gone away, right? But it is fun to kind of play with that and change those things up, because my wife is also discovering, my wife Erica is discovering more things about her like own gender queerness as well, like presenting a little bit more. Like for our wedding, she got to present as more mask, and she wore black, and she didn't, she was like, I did the white dress thing, for those who are listening, I think we told you in our last recap that the three of us had a commitment ceremony wedding, and so that's what I'm referencing to. But in our, when the three of us are having sex, there's a lot of focus on Erica, a lot of focus on support and care, and that's been a really beautiful shift for us, because it's kind of taken the pressure off Erica to feel like she's obligated to do anything. And then when the energy is there, it becomes just kind of a beautiful addition to our sex. Like if there's going to be like some more play after we've been able to focus on Erica. And some other aspects that I've just been kind of like reflecting on recently in terms of our like physical intimacy is we had our little mini honeymoon in Joshua Tree, and we had a really nice time. We'd never been to Joshua Tree. We were basically out in the middle of nowhere in the desert, and we got a hot tub, and that was a great time the first night. Erica loves a good hot tub sex moment, especially when there's no one to be seen for a minute, right? Except for maybe you can hear the coyotes, like it's
They were
wild.
cheering you on.
Yeah,
it's just you in the wilderness.
Yes, it was great. And that's just like, that's actually probably when we're talking about sex as just sex and a little bit less of emotional, like, yes, I love both of my partners, but when you're in a headspace of like, how can I take care of this person and support them and give them all of the things that they want during this one out of, because my wife is on the ACE spectrum, one out of maybe 3 or 4 times that we engage in this activity, every few months, maybe, right? And so there's a lot of pressure in the sense of like, we want to be able to give Erica what she wants in that moment. And then once that release happens and that high for her happens, it's like, oh, okay, anything else is icing. But it is easy to get into my head, because Erica can also get there too, where she's just kind of like, okay, we're gonna fucking do this. And like, she's autistic, so she gets really like technical, and so it was interesting because when I referenced to perimenopause earlier, during that weekend, I was feeling that disconnection, and I was doing so much effort to like feel connected. Like I was like, I want to be present. I want to be present for this. But there was this nice little voyeuristic chair in the corner of the bedroom that was nice and comfy. And I noticed it when the minute we got into the bedroom, the one that we chose, we made sure we had king size beds. We got in and we're just like, that's they all were like, that's your chair, Jess. Like everyone is like, that's your chair. And I got a little bit of a moment to be able to just kind of like, it's okay that I'm not in the center of this in some way or essential.
Yeah.
Like we can let this be a moment where Jana and Erica get to really connect in a special way. And I had this really beautiful moment. I shared it with them later. I was like, you guys don't exactly realize this, but as a deep feeling person, I I remember when people would say, like, what was the thing that was different about, like, when you got married to Erica? Like, what was the thing that was different? And so many people go, oh, nothing was different. You know, like, we still live together. All the things are the same. For me, the thing that was different was that one last wall that I didn't know existed. I felt it come down. This, like, vulnerability that I hadn't experienced fully, like this full immense amount of trust. Like, hey, you are really in it now. Like, you thought you were in it before, you're really in it now. Like, I've given you all of me. And I realized in a moment of sexual intimacy that Jana might be able to experience that with Erica and vice versa. And so I kind of leaned back and let that happen and watched a moment where they've almost always needed some sort of direction. I was like, you know what? Jana has been in training the last few months of being like, while I've been bottoming. And Erica's a sub times a million. Like, she's always been a sub. And so it was just really cool. It was a really cool moment to, like, just sit back and let them have there's a lot of compersion and beauty to, like, behold and yeah, it was hot, right? It was sexy. It was yummy. It was hot, right? But it was also just like, it was good. It just felt good, you know? And you do have that, like, I don't know, because of the way I was raised, I do have, like, those moments where it's like, how could anyone not see this as good? Like, I have those moments where, like, you know, how could you think that this is perverse in any sort of way? Like, there's such, I wish, I think the thing I'd been thinking about recently, especially right after getting married, was like, 15-year-old Jess could not have imagined, never, like, and maybe they had a moment where they thought, how cool would that be? But just about the gay thing, right?
Yeah.
They could not have even imagined the beauty of my life.
Means you've been really living it.
Yeah. And then, you know what? My life has been a lot of up and down roller coaster this year. But because of that up and down, I have felt the beauty of the community that I've been a part of building and the support that I've had. Even if that community has shifted, it's really cool to, like, to know that there's that support. And I feel like I'm constantly growing and learning, and that's just, like, what I've always wanted, you know? And it's obviously dope. I feel like part of the pandemic that the intimacy pandemic that no one talks about is this lack of ability to grow in your sexual life with your partners, you know, and in your intimacy. Because, like, I just think about that spiritual intimacy, that aspect of, like, Jana joining our relationship and being in a relationship with me added an aspect of spiritual intimacy that I was missing that was just gorgeous and beautiful. And it's not all the time, which is awesome.
Yeah.
It's like sometimes. And it's like, oh, pops up and you're like, oh, that was cool. What just happened? We talk about it afterwards because it didn't, you know, it's like, did you feel outside yourself for a moment? So I kind of felt outside myself. I felt like I was watching us, you know? Like, I felt like we switched maybe 5 times in that last, like, 15 minutes. And she's like, oh, yeah.
Yeah. I think that what you're describing, that lack of intimacy, the inability to grow in your intimacy, I mean, it's incredibly challenging to stay in a space of allowing updating in a world that asks us to stay one thing, to be one thing, right? And so to be present to myself as a changing being, present to my partner as a changing being, and simultaneously understanding that we may have our relationship may change, like fundamentally, like right at its ground floor, change, and to hold all of that. I mean, I can see, I have great compassion for people who are like, I just want it to be simpler. Or like I work with so many, I mean, the lion's share of my work is in polyamory, and there is a mystique, right? Sometimes people who are in their polyamory journey, but they haven't really hit their stride yet, or things have gotten difficult, they'll look back on monogamy and think, oh, it was easy when. I'm like, was it? Was it? Or people who are just figuring out how queerness impacts their partnerships and like where that intersection is for them. They're like, oh, there can be this sort of guilt that I'll hear them talking through. Like, well, I missed when it was simple. I just want everything to be simple again. I think an ability to tolerate the complexity of becoming in a world that's already asking so much. Like we are. You mentioned burnout. Like we're systemically burnt out. We're in a machine. And so to escape that, I mean, I find sex to be one of the places where I can escape the machine, but also I have to maintain enough sense of self outside of it in order to be able to really show up and be present. Otherwise, sex and intimacy starts to become kind of rote. And then I just depend on it being what I expect it to be. And I don't let myself get shocked. Right. And I've gone through periods of time in my adulthood where sex becomes about getting off and really doesn't have that deeper layer. And every time when I look back over my shoulder at what was going on, I'm like, wow, I was really burnt out, and I did not feel a sense of communitas with others. Like I didn't feel like there was a container and a community. Sometimes there was community, but no container. Sometimes like, okay, here's my container, but there's nobody really in it with me, or everybody's burnt out in it. And without that, just feeling so intensely like, okay, I'm just going to go for orgasm. I'm just going to have pleasure. And that's not for nothing. Like that in its way, like got me through periods where I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what else to do. So, just seeking pleasure. And I have plenty of people who will come in to work with me, and their original definition at the start, of like, what is intimacy will be something like, pleasure, having sex together. They can't really describe sex. They'll talk about getting off or an orgasm, but they don't have enough. Like, there's just not enough bandwidth to hold the complexity of it all. I'm sure I'll go through a period like that again. How would I not, right? Like, we're going to go through periods of grief, periods of loss, periods of challenge. My anchor partner, nesting partner, just came off of 9 months out of work. There's, these ebbs and flows that we have. And when things are easeful, it's so easy for me to have spiritually oriented sex where I have left the building. My partner and I are exchanging at a level that I don't know how I couldn't really. Like, if you ask me to describe it, like, I don't have language. I usually wind up singing, vocalizing. I'm in another place altogether. And then I'll go for several months where things they're not like that. And that's with partners that I'm getting along with. Everything's good, right? It's quote unquote good, but it's not always that. I long for a world where we're not fighting against the intensity all the time, but here we are, just in it, disrupting the machine with pleasure is a worthwhile endeavor in its own.
I like that you say pleasure instead of orgasm. Like, sometimes it's interchangeable and sometimes it's not.
Yeah, they're so distinct, really.
Yeah. And I feel like I've just been reflecting and sitting here thinking about like how much I've deconstructed sex. And what it means to me throughout my life, and how often I've ended up in conversations with people, some clients and some just friends who are like, well, we didn't have sex. And I'm like, what you just described to me was sex. What do you think sex is? And it's so interesting how often people go to technical when they think of sex. How often they say, well, we're just talking like straight. We'll use the term straight sex, but even that isn't the right thing. When people will be like, oh yeah, it's just like, intercourse. I'm
Right.
like,
It's just penises and vaginas.
Yeah,
Or
and you're like-
it's just, the word just is often in there.
often.
Right? Like, it's just.
Yeah. And then I'm like, well, what does it mean when we say we're having sex with ourselves? Do we need a dildo to make that legitimate? And they're like, do I need to have gotten off to mean that I masturbated or that I had sex with myself? And often it's this like cocking of the head, like, I don't like, maybe. And like, so much of that came up because when you're dealing with, like my wife's part of her chronic illnesses, like, affects her nerves, and so there have been so many times we've had a full-blown sexual act without an orgasm, and it sucks. No one's saying it doesn't suck, but we had to work through, like, can we, like, let go of that, like, intense, like, goal of, like, this has to happen? Can we just enjoy the pleasure of the moment and not feel there needs to be a promise of delivery? And I understand the grief that goes with that, and and I think about, like, that was just the last, like, 11 years of deconstructing, sex. Like, that's not even like all the work that I did in my 20s. I'm really curious. 17-year-old Jess who had sex for the first time, like, obviously I called that sex, but there was no penis local in the vicinity of this sex. And like, I don't know if I would have not considered it that had there not been some sort of intercourse. I'm pretty sure that I still would have called it sex. And it's just because of the intimacy and the connection. But I still had a lot of work to do to deconstruct a healthier version of what sex meant to me.
So much.
And who knows what I'll think in 10 years, I think I'm on the right path, but I'm just like, I just think about, like, earlier you were saying something about all the sex that you and your anchor partner have is queer. And I was thinking about how I often say, like, anyone that's attracted to me is queer. I am genderqueer. I'm gender fluid. So if you're attracted to me,
Welcome to the party.
that's queer.
Uh-huh. This podcast is hosted by me, Kit Sargent, co-hosted and produced by Jess Grace Garcia of Springwood Productions, and the theme music is by Brian Smith of Holy Holy Music Productions. If you could do us a huge favor and please like, follow, comment, share, do all of the things on all of the socials. You can follow the podcast on Instagram @_queer.consciousness for all the latest episodes, as well as any other exciting news. When you're listening on Spotify, please leave a 5-star rating and use the comment box for anything you'd like us to talk about. When you're listening to Apple Podcasts, please leave a comment and a 5-star rating. If you'd like to be on the podcast, send a message to queerconsciousnesspod@gmail.com. If you'd like to support the podcast, check out our Patreon at patreon.com/queerconsciousnesspodcast. We are trying to grow as organically as possible, and this helps other like-minded people who want to empower and encourage others on their journey. So until next time, remember to stand in your truth and know that you are worthy, just as you are.
We are the Deadly Faith Podcast, a show exploring where religion and crime collide. I'm Lacey.
And I'm Lola.
If you're interested in learning about cults, murderous ministers, and religiously charged crimes, look no further.
We invite you to journey with us into the dark church halls to find out what cults are hiding among us and which deranged church leaders are locked behind bars.
But we'll take a look at the religious factors that may or may not have contributed to their heinous crimes.
You can subscribe or follow the Deadly Faith Podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts. Now back to the show.
Hey friend, just wanted to take a quick second to remind you that if you or someone you know is struggling and don't know where to turn, the trained volunteers at the LGBT National Hotline are here to help. Because sometimes the strongest thing to do is to ask for help. The National Hotline phone number is 888-843-4564. And if you want to check out the other things that they have available for them to help you with, you can check out the lgbthotline.org in order to be able to see all of the services that they offer in order to help our community.